Amazing. Well, welcome, Ashton. I'm so happy you're here. So you are a motivational speaker, an author, a yoga instructor, content creator, business owner, wellness entrepreneur. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything. You're a ton of things, but maybe for those who might not know, can you share in your own words sort of what you do?
Yes. Well, Peyton, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And thank you all to listening and tuning in. My name is Ashton August. I am the founder of YogiApproved.com. We are an online wellness and yoga magazine. And I'm also the founder of Yogi Approved Classes, which is our online yoga and fitness membership platform that plants a food producing tree for every class our members complete. And in addition to that, as you said, I am a two-time published author. I just released my second book called A Year of Self-Motivation for Women. Several months, I'm like, when was that? What is time these days?
I know.
This was back in December. I released my second book. My first book is called Learn, Grow, Shift. And Peyton, you and I were just talking right before we got on camera about you loving to learn and grow. So it reminded me of my first book title, which now I have to send you a copy of. So I'm gonna
Yes.
get your address after.
Oh my God. I
Yes.
love.
Yes, thank you. So that's just a very brief smattering of what I do. But people often ask me, what was your first love? Was your first love yoga? And in fact, no. Way before yoga, my first love was and still is writing. So my fellow writer over here,
I know.
yes. So
I was
I
going to
am
ask you what your first kind of how you entered into the space. So it was through writing. That was what you originally loved.
Yes, yes. I actually started writing when I was a little kid. I was a geeky child. I didn't have a lot of friends. I moved around a lot. I got picked on a lot. And so writing was my kind of refuge and my first love. Like I said, it was my passion. And I'll never forget I was in fifth grade and I was writing all these poems during lunch and recess. I was inside writing these poems. And one of my teachers recognized this and helped me publish that book of poetry. And it's still in that fifth grade elementary school library.
Oh
How
my
sweet is
God,
that?
that is amazing. Oh my gosh. And I didn't realize you moved around a lot. Another thing we share, I moved around every year until I was in middle school and high school. I was in one place, but I totally get it. Writing was my sense of home. That's how I got into writing as well. Isn't that funny? Like
Oh,
anyways.
I love
Um,
that. I always love like hearing people's stories because you never know what piece you're going to be like, oh my goodness,
yeah.
me too. Wow.
Yeah.
That commonality is amazing.
I
Oh.
know. Okay, but so how did you shift from being more of a quiet writer, kind of like behind the scenes type of person, to being such a go-getter and having all of these different facets of yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you. That was a compliment within a question. Uh, well, as I mentioned, that one teacher, I had several teachers. I was very lucky and blessed enough to have several impactful teachers along the way that
Mm,
recognized my not just talent but my passion and
hmm.
really helped to kind of push me forward. So that was the first part of my life where I thought, where looking back on, I realized motivated me to become a teacher and have that impact. But you're going to laugh at this reason, but the way I really broke out of my shy shell was through my first job that I ever got. The day that I turned 16 was at a 1950s diner.
Oh my God, how fun. I love that. I still love diners.
I do too. I really loved it. And it was so funny because I was this shy kid and I started as a busser and I worked my way up and did all the roles in the restaurant. And my favorite role was being the hostess and
Mm.
wearing a big poodle skirt. And it they were like, Ashton, you have to speak in 50s lingo. Like what's shaking bacon, what's cooking good looking.
Oh my God.
And it didn't take long for me to be like, well, clearly I'm beyond being shy because I had this alter ego at work of being
Totally.
this upbeat and outgoing person. So that's how it all started. And I'm so grateful for that experience. Being a waitress in general has been a huge life teacher for me. And if I ever do have children, I'm going to make sure that they work in the service industry because I mean, imagine what better place the world would be if everyone had worked in like service or retail at some point in their lives, right?
Totally, totally. So what specifically do you think set you up for success in working in the service industry?
Mm. Oh my goodness, so much like confidence, right?
Mhm.
There is a real sense of autonomy there, and you really can, stand to make your own money to a certain extent because
Mhm.
it can be really good money. And I think what it really taught me was a lot of responsibility. It ingrained in me this like go getter, like, okay, I can save money, I can kind of stack cash, it
Totally,
was
yeah.
yeah, it was the first time that I got a taste for, okay, wow, if I'm good at something, and then I align myself in that case with an establishment, right? Or in my case now with having a business that aligns with my values, my goals, my vision, then the world is your oyster and you can really create your own reality through that lens of go out there, go get it, go ask for it, go work for it, believe that you
Mhm.
can do it, believe that you're worth it. And it all began back then for me as a waitress. I also had no expectation that I'd be like sharing about my Gunther 2D's 50s diner experience, but here we are.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. And how did you get into wellness from all of this or into yoga, I guess, in particular?
Yeah, because I sure was not eating well or
I was
being
gonna say
healthy.
at the diner.
Gravy fries,
Yeah.
biscuits and gravy.
I know, right?
Well, I was 19 when I took my first yoga class, and my wellness really kind of poured in all around that time. Um, and it all started with taking that yoga class. My then boyfriend's mom dragged me to class and was just like, "I think you're gonna really like this. Just be open minded." Well, the class was very hard for me, and the whole time I was struggling. I was felt super behind, and yet again was blessed to have an incredible teacher who was just very kind.
Mhm.
Obviously, could tell I was a brand new beginner, had no idea what I was doing, and was just very, accepting and, hey, you've got this, and motivating. And after class, came up to me and just said, you did a great job. What questions can I answer? And having that level of just, hi, how's it going? How are you? For me as a 19-year-old woman, that felt really impactful. I felt supported and brought into community. But more importantly, what I experienced on the mat that day was, for once, a cessation of my thoughts for, like 5 seconds. And that little brief glimpse of inner silence and a sense of peace and stillness was addicting. And I was like, I've got to go get more of that. So
Mm.
that's how I found yoga. Was it really immediately and immensely helped to shift my mindset. I am a person who has lived with high functioning anxiety my entire life, and I love to speak very candidly about mental health and wellness because it's so important, and I know that so many of us deal with mental health issues throughout our lives. And so yoga was really impactful for me for that. And then simultaneously, I was in college and I was in a food writing class that I took, if I'm being honest, because I thought it was, we're going to be able to write about cake and it's going to be an easy A.
Mhm.
Oh no, that is not what that food writing class was. That class was all about food ethics and learning about where our food comes from. And it shocked me out of ever eating fast food again. And
Mhm.
I became a vegetarian, which I share not to promote to other people, but that's my personal journey and my personal
Mhm.
decision that was truly rooted in animal rights and animal activism, and then grew into a wellness based reason because stopping meat consumption for me greatly changed my migraines, my skin. I had bad acne. It just made me feel better all around physically. And so combining that with how great yoga made me feel mentally and emotionally, was I hooked on the wellness
Oh,
journey.
yeah. Yeah, that's okay. So I also relate to a lot of what you're saying. I also suffer from anxiety, as I think so many of us do. I was a student athlete and was entered into this world of like I played volleyball, so I was in, like spandex and had multiple trainers and nutritionists, like everyone telling me how to eat, how to work out, and it sort of
Wow.
messed with my whole mentality around
Oh,
wellness and fitness, and it is so internal and it is so personal, like you mentioned. So I'm curious what your definition of wellness is, because I know it is different for everyone.
mm, I love that question. Well, I'll start by saying what wellness is not. Wellness is not a privilege. It's not reserved for a certain group of people. It's not something that is unattainable. Wellness is something that is an absolute birthright. It's something that we all are worthy of and capable of achieving through simple practices, because wellness also does not have to cost money at all, let alone be expensive, be exclusive. Wellness doesn't just mean, going to the spa or getting your nails done, because while that's fun and that counts as self-care, when I talk about wellness, I'm talking about soul care. Like,
Mhm.
how are we taking care of our minds, of our hearts, of our bodies in a way that sets us up to be of service and to be able to show up and give our very best to our loved ones and our community and our career and all of these aspects of ourselves.
Mhm.
So, all of that being said, wellness is a lifelong journey and it's comprehensive. It's what we're eating, what we're thinking, what we say to ourselves, our self talk, our mental dialogue is so important and
Mhm.
so paramount, because my friends, mindset is everything. If you go to my webpage, that's the first thing it says. Mindset is everything.
Mhm. Mhm. It's
uh,
true.
yes. And so, I truly, as one woman to another who we both have suffered from anxiety, I truly believe that wellness begins mentally and emotionally, and then it trickles into our physicality.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that. And I know it is portrayed in the media as a very restrictive, exclusive, like you're mentioning, like a certain, you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way. And it's all around maybe restrictive dieting and things like that. And that's just not what wellness is, in my opinion,
Exactly.
either. Um, how do you work to combat that with your business and your practice and your kind of social media presence?
Yeah, I that's an ongoing effort, and it's important. Um, I think a lot of what you said, like even you just saying restrictive dieting, right? Like that carries that negative connotation of, oh, go on a diet, you need to diet.
Right, right.
It goes right down to the way in which we speak and the way that we talk about these issues. And
Mhm,
so for my business, for a public facing wellness website, of course it's very important for us to really pay attention to the way that we're addressing these topics that feels not just accessible and inclusive, but also not judgmental,
mhm.
not shaming, but more like, hey, here's the reality. We all, we all eat food.
Yep.
Let's look at the food we eat and look at it through the lens of what is nourishing, what is nutritious for our bodies, as opposed to, is that going to make you gain or lose weight?
Mhm.
Things like that. So just kind of that simple shift is one in the way in which we talk about these things, is one way that I, maintain like that gatekeeper of wellness in a positive and empowering light. In my social media presence as well, it's coming from a place of, let's educate, inform, and then inspire and empower. And so I've seen a lot, particularly in the past, because I like what's happening now is
Me
there's a
too.
big spotlight, right? Like
Mhm,
there's a big spotlight on, hey, what has been wrong in the past?
mhm.
And I remember back in 2015, everyone's talking about like summer ready abs and,
Oh, yeah.
like all this stuff. And now the conversation is more like, well, your body is summer ready exactly how it is, because it's a body and it's ready for summer. Like,
Mhm.
what?
Exactly, exactly.
And so through that lens of informing and educating, we can now inspire and empower people to make decisions for themselves, to make choices, and to learn and grow themselves in ways that best suit them and their personal journey and their needs, because wellness is also not a one size fits all.
Yeah. And do you think you're start as a writer and as someone who appreciates language and words really helps with this messaging? Because I feel like that must contribute to how you positively can portray this and communicate it effectively and share stories in a way that's inclusive and community oriented. Do you think that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you're a writer too. And I can tell it informs the way that you speak so eloquently because as writers, you do have such a way with words, right? And we are true wordsmiths, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that totally trickles through. And I'm really grateful to have the gift of writing and to be able to use that gift as a way of sharing and getting this information out there.
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to circle back to what you had said about restrictive dieting. I was not attacking you
Oh,
like
no, I know.
yeah, no, I was just saying like I could feel just from like your short little share of your college experience and playing sports that was
Mhm.
kind of the environment that you were kind of put in.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think like you were saying, there's been such a shift in the media and in social media and in just conversations among women. It's been so much less competitive and less restrictive and less exclusive just over time. So it's been, and I think also I work in corporate America. So having this grind culture and never stopping, never sleeping, live off caffeine, because it can feel kind of negative when wellness should be such like a positive, you're nurturing your mind, you're growing, you're learning, you're eating fun foods, but you're also resting. I just feel like it is shifting the way that we're talking about it in a more positive light, which is awesome.
And yes, and so important for, corporate America, for example,
Yes,
because that's been a huge driver of this glorification
exactly.
of glorification of the grind mentality. And I got totally caught up in that when I started
Oh,
Yogi,
yeah.
and I was legitimately like burning the wick at both ends, major burnout. It wasn't like oh my gosh, I'm not going to admit this to anyone, but I'm burning out. It's, yeah, I'm totally burnt out and I'm still going because, yeah, it was like, what? Like, that's just.
I know. I know. It's wild. And I've seen it. And that's what I'm curious about. Like, how do you manage having all of these different facets of yourself and such a wide range business, but also kind of staying true to your authentic self, which is resting and baking in yoga time and baking in these like wellness practices.
I love that. I love that baking in term. I'm like, yeah, let's bake it in. That sounds delicious. Uh, so yes, I shared a story on my social media this weekend, and it was all about making sure that you relax as hard as you work.
I love that.
And girlfriend, like you, I work really hard and I relax really hard. I learned it more recently than I would like to admit. But I
Mhm.
actually learned it when I was writing my second book because I got a book deal and thank you. And it was very tight deadlines, very quick turnarounds for each segment of the book that was due. And this is while I'm running my company. And
Totally.
it was a lot. And so I was absolutely needing to create like a very strict routine, but I had learned from my past mistakes of needing to include within that routine plenty of time for rest and self-care and soul care and recovery. And because when we take that time, that's when we fill up not just our energy levels and our sense of fulfillment in life, but also with inspiration, with motivation
Mhm.
going. You come back and you're like, yes, let's get it. Like, I want to jump in right now, as opposed to dragging yourself to your desk with your eighth cup of coffee and you feel terrible. Right? Like, you can feel it in your body, the
Mhm.
difference between those two approaches. And so I'll share that new approach for when I wrote my second book worked like a dream. It worked better than I even expected. And sure, it's a lot to take on and it was a challenging at times process, but overall it felt very, very smooth. It felt very nourishing and I felt nourished. And it was a beautiful process that I have not lost sight of. I still maintain my solid morning routine. I still bake in the time for my yoga practice and working out.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's very important to, and I won't use the word balance because I don't feel like that's quite realistic most of the time.
I completely agree. And I feel like it is sort of another pressure, that conversation of balance. Like you have to achieve this perfect balance. And to your point, I don't know if that exists, but we can definitely prioritize. And we have seasons of life where, we're focused on one area and we're focused on another in another season. So I'm with you. I feel like the balance thing it's really hard to achieve. And I don't know if it's even possible.
But I
Um,
love how you shared that even that puts pressure. And that's I interrupted,
mhm.
but if I could just say one thing, piggybacking on
Yes.
that beautiful point, it's that again, we're getting back to mindset and to view things through what makes you feel good versus
Yep.
even if it's in with the best intention, of find balance in your life. If that makes you immediately feel like skirt, I can't,
Yep.
don't do it. Don't do it.
Totally. Yep. I'm with you. I'm completely with you. And I, obviously, as a writer, am so proud to hear that you were able to publish 2 books. So I want to hear, how did you approach this? Like, how did you know how to go about doing this? I don't even know what the process is like.
I, I didn't either. I honestly at first. So I before I had written my first book, I was editing other books. So that was
Okay.
my first initial foot in the publishing world
Hmm.
was the book editor because my background is in academia. After getting my master's degree, I was an English professor and I love that. I love that work. And then with Yogi Approved, I am the content director. So I oversee all the content that we publish, whether it's articles or videos.
Hmm.
And so I love editing. I like writing more, but I do really love it.
Yes.
And so I had edited some books, which, you hear from these authors about their experience with their publishing companies or, with their self-publishing experience. And the first book I wrote, I did decide to self-publish because I had my Yogi Approved platform. I just wanted to get this book out there. And
Hmm.
like you just said, I had no idea how to shop for an agent, for a publisher, for a book deal. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to get it out there. And from there, more doors will open and I trust.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. The first one was totally self-published through Amazon. It is for sale on Amazon now, and it's also offered on yogiapproved.com. So that's the way that I did my first book. And it was so fun and such an amazing experience. That book, Peyton, I wrote in 2 weekends. It
What?
it poured out of me.
Oh my gosh. How long is it?
It is a personal development workbook. So it's not like
Okay.
400-page novel.
Totally. I was going to be like, oh my goodness, you must have not slept. That's wild.
Yeah, right. You're like, that doesn't sound healthy at all, Ashton. But it was because there was so much brewing and simmering inside of me for so long. You know how that
Yeah.
is as a writer, right?
Yes.
Where you hit that breaking point and it just pours out on the page. So that was that first experience. And then I was actually contacted by this publisher for book number 2. And I'm going to share this story because I hope that it resonates and that other people can say, okay, I'm going to remember this. This is going to feel good for me. But I was reached out to pre-COVID from this publisher and we started the conversation. We're going down the line. COVID happens. Everything gets put on pause.
Hmm.
The whole company gets like a whole
Oh
big
yeah.
series of unfortunate events. And then I thought, wow, this might be the end of it, and that's fine. It is what it is. But all I can do is continue to try. So I'm going to keep in contact with the company. I'm going to kind of keep reaching out every so often. Hey, here I am. You know,
Hmm.
and sure enough, fast forward to last year, I get contacted with a book concept, which ended up being a year of self-motivation for women. So it was the perseverance to not take not just one closed door or 2 or 3, but 7, 8, 9, whatever, however many closed doors there were in that situation for me, and just say, you know what, I'm going to persevere. I'm going to trust. I'm going to just keep at it. And I know that one day in some way, a door is going to open again. And it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's easy to get beat down, especially as writers, because it's our art form, it's our personal creation. It came from here. And
Mhm.
so to then have someone read it and reject it, because I've been rejected many times too. And that's fine. That's all part of the game. And not even the game, that's just life.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it's an important reminder for all of us that rejection is nothing more than one door closing so that another door opens, and that will happen in perfect timing, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And in the meantime, though, continue doing the work, continue showing up for yourself, continue showing up for these opportunities, and continue trusting that with your work and your intention and your perseverance, they will come to fruition.
I love that message and I completely resonate. I'm sure a lot of us do and will, but I feel like I don't know if this means anything to you, but I'm a Virgo. So I'm very,
Oh yeah.
type A, like I have a lot of structures and routines and perfection is yeah. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. So even when starting something like a blog, which is nowhere close to a book, but it's something where I was like, oh, I need to wait till it's perfect. I need to wait till I know my color schemes and I know what I want to say and I know how to say it. But really it was like putting it out there and still iterating. I still to this day iterate on this blog of trying to be, truer to myself. How can I rearrange the content? How do I make the architecture make it more sense and whatever else? So it's an iterative process, but I love that you started your book writing process from just putting it out there and seeing what happened. And trying, because I think a lot of us postpone trying because we're waiting for this perfect moment that just doesn't exist.
So spot on, babe. So spot on. And
Yeah.
I would I am a Leo, so but I know plenty of type A Virgos.
Yeah.
You've got like the Virgo energy behind that though, so you're even
Yes.
more like perfection. Um, but one of the mantras that I've been using recently a lot is progress over perfection.
Ooh,
Progress over perfection.
yep.
Because you would have never, and PS, your blog is beautiful. Your
Oh,
website looks
thank you.
amazing. And if anyone's listening, I mean, if you're listening, I'm sure you've been to her website, but if you haven't, go check it out because you're going to be like, hey, no more iterations. You're good. You got it. Um,
Thank you.
but yes, because otherwise, and I've been there for years, so I'm speaking from experience and doing this myself. You're going to spend 5 times as long writing that article, writing your
Mhm.
social media post, filming, a video for TikTok, uh,
That's
or
exactly.
starting that first book. It's like,
Yes.
goodness, my friends, release the impulse for perfection because number one, that's etheric, it's subjective. What does that even mean?
Mhm.
um and just get it done in the name of progress. And you know who
Mhm.
is the queen of that is Yumi Jean-Francois, your
Ooh.
your recent podcast guest. Yeah, she just pumps out incredible content, and it's so authentic, and you would look at it and say, dear Lord, this woman must spend so long. But no, she's
Yeah.
like, turn it on, film it, turn it off, it's done.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I think there is there consistency in showing up, and I was curious about social media presence because I think it's something I definitely struggle with and I know a lot of people struggle with because it's not that I don't love being in the limelight, but I think it's scarier to post about online than to write a story about someone else and share it on a blog. So how did you overcome, if you ever experienced this, how did you overcome that feeling and how do you consistently show up on social media?
Yeah. I'm going to start by saying I do not consistently show up on social media, meaning I'm not posting regularly. I'm not, every Tuesday, Thursday, you're getting a new post from me.
Got it.
Um,
Yep.
on my business page, yes, that is the case. Why? Because I have a social media manager.
Mm.
Because another saying that I love is do what you do best and delegate the rest.
Oh, I love that too.
Because and also this comes with a little bit of time, because in day one, year one of my business, was I able to afford paying someone else to do something that I don't love
Mhm.
to do? No.
Mhm.
So that's a bit of a privilege that comes with being in business for 7 years, and
Right.
but point is that for me, I recognized, you know what? I am not going to be as consistent and thereby impactful on social media as someone who is more passionate about it. And that's okay. And so that's what works for me. And my social media manager is incredible. And she creates amazing community. And her and I work behind the scenes in creating all the content, of course, because I love the writing piece.
Yes, yes.
And that is what has just worked for me. So in addition to that, though, regardless of the consistency, I also realized that when you said showing up, you didn't just mean on a consistent, regular basis. You meant like, how do I show up in a way that is authentic and of integrity and all of these things? And that did take some time because like you, I'm fine to be on the, like I said, I'm all over the internet, guys. I'm all over the internet. But it is different. It's vulnerable. My social is public, so that's challenging. Is yours as well?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that kind of adds that layer of, if you're writing it for your blog, it feels a little faceless, but in a good way, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then you put yourself out there on social. You really, really do. And so I think it's important to be grounded and rooted first and foremost in your sense of self, what you stand for, what, the values that you want to lead with and act from. And then you just remain rooted in that place and you share authentically from that place. And when you can kind of stay anchored in that.
Oh, I love.
Thank you. It was actually, my husband and I got tattoos on Valentine's Day years ago.
Did you? Oh.
It was his only tattoo. He was in so much pain, girl. I was like, oh my goodness. Turns out you don't like needles, huh?
Yeah. I'm going to get my first one soon. So that's hilarious that you just shared that. I love it.
Yay. I know, totally random digression. But that's the takeaway. I do show up authentically and in alignment with my my beliefs and what I stand for and my messaging of, I just want to help people. I just want to help people feel good. I want to, so here's my kind of mission, right?
Yeah.
I know as Ashton that I am here to be of service to the collective good. I want to uplift people and make a positive impact through sharing my knowledge, and spreading the good word of yoga and wellness and these types of amazing conversations around wellness. So through that lens is how I show up on my social media.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that must also be echoed in a lot of the speaking engagements you have, which is also another way that you're sharing and exposing yourself and being kind of this public force. So what are your speaking engagements like? Is it virtual mainly now? Is it in person? Is it at schools? Like, what is this? I guess, tell me more about it.
It has been all of the above.
Okay.
Of course, these days now it's primarily virtual, which ended up being great since I moved to Tucson during COVID. So
oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's been great for my mental health. Speaking of mental health, I live in the nature. The desert is healing and magic. I love it. But I also moved from downtown Denver with a huge community. I'm from Denver. So to move from that to a little bubble out in nature where I don't know anyone, that was a bit of a shock, but anyway, the point is that I was really grateful that there were so many virtual opportunities to remain connected in my communities and to be doing all of these things. So regardless of whether they are in person, I have held retreats, I have held workshops, I have spoken at schools. One of my favorite initiatives was co-creating with a good friend of mine who is a school psychologist, a yoga program for high needs elementary schools.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we created a yoga program and we brought it to the classrooms. And so instead of these children being, sent to timeout or sent to the principal's office, they were instead sent to the Peace Corner, where they could get on their yoga mat and they could practice the poses that we taught them. And they could do a breathing technique or sit in meditation for a few moments. And it was one of the most impactful experiences I've had. And I would love to do more of that. So I always share that because you never know who's listening. You never know who's like, oh my goodness, like I did with the school psychologist, let's join forces, let's make this happen. Because as I was half joking earlier about, imagine what a better place the world would be if everyone had had a job in retail or in the service industry. Truly, let's all imagine the difference that would be in one generation from now if our children, our youth, were all taught meditation in school. We're all taught how to take a step back and breathe. Girlfriend, you and me, we moved around a lot when
Yep.
we were little. We had a hard time making friends as a result. We've both had anxiety our whole lives. If you're anything like me, you had immense anxiety when you were a child about all of the things I just mentioned.
Yes.
And my God, was I just a constant ball of stress and angst
Yep.
through high school, for God's
Yep.
sake. So, what an amazing gift that we can now give to our current day youth. That's a total digression, but man, it's an important topic of
Oh
conversation.
yeah. And I'm glad that you brought it up because I actually had is it my aunt-in-law? It's my husband's aunt, who I'm very close. I love his whole side of his family. And she is a special education teacher. And I had her on this blog and she also was talking about, I think it's kindergarten and first grade. She's now first grade, but was talking about her kindergarten years, but she would be so in love with any sort of program if you still have something available or if you're still that's a total side note, but she was on this blog and sharing kind of like how children remind her to appreciate the everyday small moments like rain and going outside and they're so in love with the puddles. And she's like, they are cool, aren't they? And so she was just sharing how children really help spark that, I don't know, inner joy and that inner kind of child in all of us. So anyways, that's a total side note, but I love that you were able to do that because that's, I think, so important.
Oh, thank you. And I do too. And bless your aunt. That's so wonderful
I
for
know.
her. And
I
to
know.
be on this, I love that. And
I know.
yeah, so yes, from my book to my speaking engagements, everything, even my yoga teaching, it's all similar in that I bring a lot of motivational talk and messaging into what I do. And I use whatever platform it is, whether it's the writing or teaching yoga or, speaking engagement in any sense, to infuse that into, the messaging that I'm there to share, because truly we are all in this together. And it's been a very challenging and traumatic past few years for everyone for a lot of reasons. And what we're seeing now is community is everything, and through community is where we find a foundation of support. And once we have a sense of community and we feel supported, now we're motivated, now we can take these steps.
Yes.
And that is so key. And it's also simple. I mean, it takes work, of course, but it's a simple formula.
Absolutely. And I think that also kind of bridges into what I wanted to ask next, which I ask everyone. And I'm curious how you define success, because I think there is one path that is laid out for a lot of us at a young age. And my husband's a doctor, my mom was a lawyer, my dad's a businessman. I mean, I was surrounded by these people that were like, followed a straight path. It was linear. They kind of worked their way up. I just never related to that. And I was like, I see myself over here and then I want to backtrack and do that. And then I want to go right and open that door. And to me, success is exploring, and it's about kind of following whatever makes sense for you in the point of life that you're in. But I'm curious to hear from you. What do you define as success?
Well, thank you for sharing your definition, because I love that. And yeah, you were, of course, speaking to the same wavelength that I'm going to say, which is so often we are societally pressured to go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, get a house. I mean, it's like these weird milestones that have like the standard. And you're married, so you probably noticed too. It's like you get married, people ask, well, when are you gonna have a baby? You get land your dream job at TikTok, people ask, well, when are you gonna buy your house? It's like, so the point is, to me, Your husband, who's a doctor, that of course he's successful. The man worked so hard to get his degree and to become a doctor, all these things. But to me, success is up to the individual. And it's really about what you said. How are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling like in life you have, freedom to be where you want to be and to do the things that bring you joy? And are you feeling fulfilled? Are you happy? That's success, and the whole, like, you're only successful once you make a certain amount of money, or once you accomplish ABC, or you get this title or this recognition. I think it's bullshit. I think
it is bullshit.
And no disrespect to everyone out there who has, accomplished all the things. I think that's wonderful. But to be defining your success on those things only, I have a good friend who is a mindset coach, and he had landed this great job at the bank, and his whole family were very much, strict in their expectations of him, and they were very happy that he had gotten this job. Well, he was miserable. He hated it. He ended up having like a terribly unhealthy personal life because he was so miserable in his job. And when he finally quit and stepped off the ledge and said, you know what? I don't even care about the money. I don't care about the title. I don't even care if my family's mad at me. I'm just going to do what I love, which is helping others. I'm just going to become this mindset coach and help others through what I didn't get support on, which is following the path of what they truly enjoy and letting that lead them to success, as opposed to following the path that was cut for them by other people's expectations. And then their soul is slowly dying inside. And now he's way more successful than he ever was at the bank, in terms of financial success, in terms of how he feels, in terms of his impact on the world. I mean, and that's just one example. But again, to me, that is what success is. I define myself as being very successful. Am I rich? No. Am I the biggest wellness platform out there? No. Do I care about those two things? No. What I do care about is being of impact, is showing up authentically, is enjoying my life, because life is short, and we should be enjoying our lives and not working to live. And okay, I speak that with a little bit of privilege. I realize that not everyone is in the position of being able to do that in this point of time. But it's wherever you are, whatever your, current career or job situation is, it's what, if you have the things in your life that you are happy with, that bring you joy, fulfillment, contentment, and peace, you're successful, regardless of how much money you have in the bank, anything like that. To me, that feeling state is what dictates success.
100%. And I completely agree. And I'm glad that you called out the privilege, because I think we both come from a different, mindset where we're trying to explore what excites us. And that's not always given as an opportunity to some people. But I think that mantra of following your inner gut feeling and not looking towards one path as the only way that you can find stability and success, I think that rings true for anyone. Right. So, I am in the last couple of minutes. I want to ask, what is next? Do you have any fun projects, any exciting things that we can stay tuned for?
Woo! So much. I'm like, yeah, what's coming next? What's coming next, Hayden? Yes, I am really looking forward to be getting back into teaching more live events.
Nice.
In-person live
In
events.
person. Nice.
Yes. So I'll be in Denver the end of April for a yoga teacher conference, teaching for a yoga teacher conference. And I'll be doing another one in the fall in Chicago. And I'm lining up some New York City events this June. So I'm really excited to be back in that in-person dynamic, because I love that so much. And as much as I love virtual, because of course Yogi Approved and why classes is all virtual, and that's beautiful because I have writers, teachers, and students from around the world, which is amazing. As much as I love that, I equally love that face-to-face, that, you feel and you vibe off that energy of the room, and that's, what you bring to your speaking, your teaching. So those in-person upcoming events, I'm really looking forward to. And then For Yogi Approved, my whole focus right now is growth for Yogi Approved classes. And so we're adding a lot of exciting new things. We just launched our YA classes live. So we have 3 weekly live virtual classes with our favorite instructors. Every month it's new instructors. So I'm really excited for that. And I'm also continuing to expand the mindset wellness portion of Yogi
Amazing.
classes. Yeah, so new programs coming down the pipeline of mindfulness for anxiety and more, wellness supporting practices, all under the Yogi Approved classes umbrella. So I'm really, really excited for that. And as I mentioned, we plant trees. Every class member completes helps to plant a food producing tree.
Wild.
And we're about to hit 300K, 300,000 trees in
Oh my
Africa.
God, that's wild. So quick question about that. So how did you find the company to partner with in that way?
Yes, altruism is a key pillar of any business that I do. And so I knew I wanted to be involved in something that was really impactful.
Mm.
And we found Trees for the Future, which is our partner nonprofit. Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah.
And, and they're an incredible organization. I love what they're up to. And so we partner with them to make this a reality. And these are food producing trees. So these trees are bringing food to the community. And it's also supporting these farmers in Africa by providing more sustainable farming practices to help them continue to expand their farming business. So it's really cool that it's giving back to this community as well as the planet. And for me, it's motivating to know that I'm doing something so good for myself by practicing yoga, but also doing something so good for the collective. So
I am so happy to hear that. That's incredible. I mean, that is so powerful. That's incredible. So are all your classes free or are some free? There's membership. I saw there was membership as well. So does it range?
yeah, so Yogi Approved Classes is our membership platform,
Okay.
and everyone can try it for 2 weeks for free. And then we're also about keeping our prices accessible. So it's just $14 a month or $120 a year, which boils down to $10 a month. And we're currently running a sale, and our annual is half off. So bam, that sale is going to be going on
Amazing.
so I could share that. Yeah, but we also do have a YouTube channel because I always want everyone to be able to access yoga. So we have a Yogi Approved YouTube channel. Those classes are all free.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so inspired by you. I'm like having conversations like this is exactly why I started this blog. So thank you so much for being a part of this. And
Oh,
I really, really appreciate you sharing.
oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Peyton. It was lovely to connect with you, and I love what you're up to. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to listen. If I may, I would love to hear from everyone. If you want to connect with me personally, my name is I am Ashton August on Instagram, and please follow and support my company, Yogi Approved and YA Classes. And the last thing I just wanted to end with, Peyton, you're going to get a kick out of this, but I just recently created my first TikTok account. So
Yay!
don't judge on the bandwagon, but I've got 9 followers so far, you guys.
Woo! I love it. Progress over, what is it? Progress over
Progress over perfection.
There you go.